there is a biological impulse that probably laid the foundation for what we now call art. And so if you look most basically, that's an aesthetic instinct. And many, many animals have an aesthetic instinct. And we see this in mating rituals, for example, and choices of birds with beautiful feathers and so on. It's also been demonstrated in the lab. There's a researcher in Japan that trained birds to distinguish different classical musicians from each other and different forms of visual art as well, and showed that the animals seem to have a kind of preference for certain forms of music and visual art. And there's other kinds of research that point to biologists in particular, animal behavioralists have shown that the aesthetic instinct is fundamental in much of the animal kingdom. But just having the aesthetic instinct isn't creating Starry Night, Van Gogh's Starry Night, right?
Right.
So what more is there? Well, there's also an element that probably emerged about 500,000 years ago of self-expression, right? So this idea that you have an emotion, you have an experience, there's something in you that wants to express what it is that's a part of your world externally by creating images. And we see this most, where we get that date from is that there's a shell that was found in Indonesia that was carved by a Homo erectus ancestor about 500,000 years ago that has etchings across it. And there's no hypothesis that really points to, in terms of having evidence that would support it, that this having any kind of function at all. So a lot of anthropologists think that this is maybe the very first indications of kind of a non-functional behavior that might be a form of self-expression. So, but if you add together the aesthetic instinct and self-expression, that also isn't quite art as well, because you need something that we call symbolic thinking, the ability to recognize that if you draw a tree on a cave, that is not a literal tree, right? But that is a symbol that indexes a real tree out in the world. So what we think of as, for example, visual arts is really the combination of the aesthetic instinct, self-expression, and symbolic thinking. And it's really the synergy of those three that are part biological, if you go all the way back to aesthetic instinct, but then become more and more cultural and become more and more, you can draw a tree, you can write the word tree in English, you could write the word tree as a Chinese character, or you could draw a tree, right? All of those then become fundamentally cultural. And then that's how you get art, in my view. So, it's fascinating. Yes, if you look at the very emergence of like stone tools, and how that began to shape our biology, very clear. But then when you look deeper in time, it also is a question of the mind and how our minds work around concepts of, art, and similar things are happening with religion and so on. So you really do see this continual interplay between biology and culture for much of this 4 million year history.